Okay, this is the Lab 1 report guide video. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do for your lab report individually, as well as what your group needs to produce for the lab report. So you're going to want to go to Moodle and click on the lab report guide. And when you click on the lab report guide will come up. Now, the purpose of these labs is to give you experience with collecting data, writing up a report, start to finish. This is essentially going to be a mini research paper that will be on this particular topic about territorial defensive space and about our study that we conducted on parking lot behavior. Okay. This is separate from your final project. However, the experience that you get from this lab will help to inform what you do for your research in your final project. Now, the lab report will contain all of the elements of the final paper. So it will contain all of the things that we will ultimately have in your final senior thesis. It will have a title page, it will have an introduction, it will have a methods and a results section and a discussion section and references. Importantly, this lab report is on the parking lot behavior. It's not related to your final project. So first thing you want to do is have a title page. Next thing you want to do is you want to divide up the lab report by your group members. So there are 4 sections to this paper: the introduction, methods, results, and discussion. And so each group member, if you have 4 people, should take one section of the paper to work on individually. Now, for the introduction, you are going to need to have 4 sources other than the target article that is posted on Moodle, the Rubeck and Dwang target article. You want to summarize those articles and put them together into an introduction that leads us from the beginning of we don't know anything down to our hypothesis, which is our prediction that people will take longer to pull out of a parking spot when someone is waiting versus not waiting. The method section. For the method section, the person who does the method section is going to need to describe the participants. So when we get the data and I post the video for the results, you'll see that I'll go over how many males do we have, how many females do we have, what is the ethnic breakdown of our sample. The person who does the methods will describe this in the participant section. The person who does the methods will also describe the materials and procedures that we used in our study, right? So remember when we talked in class about how specifically we were going to collect data, and we talked about when are we going to count it as an intrusion versus not, and when do we start the time, and when do we stop the time, and where did we go, and when did we go during daylight hours, and those sorts of things. The method section of a research paper should function like a recipe, right? It is a recipe for how to do the study that is described by the paper. So you want your method section, if you are the person in your group who's doing the method section, you want that method section to be detailed enough that you could hand that method section to another student next semester, and just from reading it, they could go out and they could collect the same data in the same way that you did for this project. The results section, we will conduct an analysis in class. I will post a results video once all of the data has been entered, and the results video will go over exactly what happened in our study. And in that video, I will explain how to use the tools that I've posted on Moodle to write the results section. The results section will describe the results of our study. So what happened when we went out into parking lots. Finally, the discussion section. The discussion section will summarize the hypotheses and relate them back to the results. And the discussion section will tie our research that we did back to the introduction. It'll tie it back to the other studies that have been previously done that we summarized in the introduction. Are our results the same? Do we find the same pattern? Are they different? What do our results mean in sort of the bigger picture? Do we have any new ideas? Like if you were going to do the study again, what would you do differently? What are some additional variables you think that might be influencing the patterns that we see? So discussion section, you want to relate back to the introduction. And then finally, at the end of the paper, you'll have a references section. This will include the reference for the 5 articles that you write about in the introduction. This will include the Rubeck and Zhuang article, which is posted on Moodle, as well as the 4 other articles that you find as a group. Now, this group breakdown of work assumes that everyone in the group, assumes that there are 4 people in the group. If there are 3 people in the group, then you will have to do 1 less article in the introduction. So you will only need to have 3 articles in your introduction plus the target article. Now, as you sit here and think about this breakdown of work, you will probably come to the conclusion that there is more work that is going to need to go into the introduction compared to the methods, the results, and the discussion. And this is true. And so one recommendation that I have is that I recommend that the students in your group who choose to do the methods, results, and discussion summarize 1 article and send it to the person who is doing the introduction. That way, the person who's doing the introduction only has to summarize 2 articles and then assemble the introduction from the other summaries from their other group members. So ideally, the way this works is if I am the person who's in charge of the results section, I will watch the results video and I will pay attention to how to write up the results. I will write up my results paragraph. And then I will also go and find an article related to the topic, related to territorial defensive space, related to parking behavior. I'll write a summary of that article separately, and I will send that to the person in my group who's in charge of the introduction. And then that way the person who's in charge of the introduction only has to do 2 or so paragraphs, plus assembling the introduction. That would be my individual contribution if I was in charge of the results section. So I wrote the results section, and I also summarized 1 article and sent it to the person who's doing the introduction. For the individual contribution, you would just submit the work that you did, the things that you wrote, and any narrative that goes along with that. I went to group meetings, I responded to texts, I volunteered to put together the group paper and turned it in, those kinds of things. For the group paper, you will turn in a lab report that has all of these sections in order. And so you will have a title page with all your group members' names on it. And then you will put together the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion from everyone's individual work, and you will blend it together into 1 paper that reads start to finish. Now, I recognize that for most of you, this is going to be the first time you've done a project like this, unless you were in my stats class, and then you kind of know how this goes. And so with that in mind, my expectations for this project are going to be tempered by the fact that I know this is the first time you've done this. So don't stress too much about it being right. Stress a little bit, but don't stress a lot. Right? As long as you have the pieces in the right order, the introduction, the methods, results, and discussion, you will get most of the points for this assignment, both individually and for your group. And just like the final paper, I will give you feedback, and I will expect you to incorporate that feedback, and I will have higher expectations for lab number 2. So that's it for the lab number 1 introduction. Please send me an email if you have any questions.